Okay, so in this video, I hope to show you a few things about our band handbook. Now, the band handbook is a document that we have put together that would probably answer about 95% of any questions that you may have. It's possible it's not going to answer all the questions, but it's going to answer many questions you're going to have each year. So it's a really good resource, especially for new parents. There's a couple ways to get to the band handbook. The most easiest way is to visit our website. So go to pacehsband.com. And then a really important part of the website is over here under resources. So you click on resources and we have a drop-down menu and you go to band documents and forms. You click on that and on this page you'll see these are all the forms that are relevant to our band program. And some of these forms are required forms and some of these forms are optional forms. So if you need to access something particular, this would be the page that it is on. And at the top of the page, you'll see the band handbook. And now on here, it says the band handbook for 2019-2020. That's for this past year. It's a little out of date, so there'll be a new version of the handbook that will get posted here soon. It's just not quite ready yet. So you'll click on that and that will bring up the band handbook. So I'm going to switch over to the updated version of the handbook, and this is mostly updated for this year. And we'll go ahead and scroll through here, a welcome letter, and we get to the band mission statement. All of our members learn this mission statement, and we do say the mission statement at the end of every practice and performance. It's kind of something that we built our program upon, but your child will become very familiar with that over time. On page 4, we have some information about charms. Now, we did a separate video that talks all about charms, so I don't need to read this to you, but if you forget anything, here's a little bit of a refresher course of what that video was about. What charms is and how you can log into it. On page 5, we have some information about syncing the band calendar to your phone. Remember that the band calendar is an active living document that is online. We don't ever distribute paper copies of the calendar. It's always online. So the best thing for you to do is sync it with your phone. And that way you can click on the calendar on your phone and have all the band events come up just right there at your fingertips. On page 6, this is our ensembles page. This shows all the major primary ensembles that we have in the PACE band program. We do have a separate video that kind of covers some of the details about how these ensembles work, but you can see in no particular order the offerings of our program. And then it takes me down to page 7, talking about attendance policies. Now, we run our band program like just about anyone who is competitive runs their program. The football coach expects their players to be at every practice. It's not optional. It's necessary for them to move forward and improve as an organization. And our program is no different. Students are expected to be at all rehearsals, sectionals, and performances. And that is the general policy. Now, there are, of course, exceptions to that. You see right here, excused absences will include only the following: sickness, death in the family, and any other severe situation. In that case, we need to make sure that we are notified as soon as possible. And the best thing for you to do is email a band director in advance of the absence. We typically review these absences on a case-by-case basis, so it's hard for me to just determine whether it's going to be excused or unexcused. Just know that if you miss a rehearsal, you're going to have a lot of information to catch up on, and that's going to be the responsibility of the student. If it's a situation where you're unable to contact a band director in advance, we understand. I would just make sure that you reach out to one of us after the fact as soon as you are able. As a note here, it says unexcused and ignored absences will result in a grade deduction, will affect future performance participation. That is true. Basically, if we can't rely on a student to be at our rehearsals and performances, we are not able to rely on that student. So it's important that they're there, and if they are there, there won't be any issues or problems. Talking about rehearsals for marching band, typically our schedule is, once the school year begins, Monday afternoons 3:30 to 4:30. That's alternating brass and woodwinds. So brass will be one Monday and then woodwinds will be the next. So it's not every week. Tuesday evenings 6 to 9 and Thursday evenings 5 to 9. Many students stay after school. If they do that, they have to stay in the band room. They're not permitted to wander around the school. If they do, they will get a referral. But they're welcome to bring a snack to eat. They can do their homework or just kind of chill out for a little while. That is not a problem. So especially for those folks who don't drive, if they go home, they don't have a way to get back, they're encouraged to just stay at the school. And then moving into the later part of the year, concert ensemble rehearsals and sectionals. You'll see right here, the concert band typically rehearses Monday afternoons, symphonic band Tuesday evenings, and wind ensemble Thursday evenings. That's only kind of a few weeks leading up to a specific concert. That's not year-round. So that's important to understand. Now, the dress rehearsal policy applies to marching band, applies to concert ensembles, jazz ensembles as well. And this is the policy. It says, an absence from a rehearsal immediately before any performance, whether it's excused or unexcused, will prohibit the absent student from full participation in the performance unless otherwise approved. Now, this is not going to penalize the student. This is not going to affect the student's grade. This is only to protect students who may have missed important information the day before a performance, and they're not able to get that information in time for the performance. Basically, what am I saying is we don't want anyone to be embarrassed in front of a large group of people. So we do make changes last minute, especially during marching season. We just don't want that student to embarrass themselves or put other students at risk. So we do ask that you respect that policy going forth throughout the year. Regarding sectionals, there are sectionals depending on the ensemble that do get scheduled from time to time. Just know that if you miss a sectional, it is the responsibility of the student to see the director of that ensemble to make up that sectional. We have a way to make up those things, just the effort needs to be made. We're usually pretty flexible on that, but again, communication is best. So let us know when you can't be there, and then let's work towards finding a solution to make up that missed sectional. Performances are absolutely mandatory, and there is really no other way of putting that. We need students to be there with marching band, with concert ensembles, with jazz ensembles, and with indoor groups. It doesn't work without certain people there. We need everyone there. So that is very important. If there is a severe situation that does come up, please let us know. If you know of an absence in advance, it's best to let us know well in advance, 6 months in advance. That way we can plan accordingly. But if you let us know the night before, that's generally going to be a big issue. Moving on to the next page, this is just some examples of some of the performances that the students will take place in a typical year. Just understand, like I mentioned, performances are mandatory. There is no makeup assignment for missing a performance. There's nothing that I can have a student do that will be equal to the live performance. So it's very important that they're in attendance. The marching band performs at all football games, typically on Friday nights throughout the fall. We do have marching competitions that we participate in, which vary from year to year. There are various parades and community performances that we do from year to year. And of course, there could be additional performances thrown in there. That's just the general stuff that we're used to. For concert season, there's typical things such as MPAs, which are music performance assessments that the students do each spring. There's fall, winter, and spring concerts. And again, there could be other additional performances in there as well. With any performance, or really any time we travel, it's important to note about the student checkout procedure. In this case, this would be if a student travels to an event with the band, and then the parent also travels separately to that event, and then the student leaves with the parent. We call that a student checkout. And so we have no problem with this happening. We do ask that the student rides to the event with the band students, so they are under our direct supervision. But once that event is over, if they want to ride home with a parent, that is not a problem. We just need to know in advance through a written note or email of that checkout. And we typically will set, a deadline of 24 hours in advance, so we have time to compile all that information and make sure that our chaperones are aware. If we don't get that written notification 24 hours in advance, the student's not going to be permitted to check out, and that's a school rule, and there's nothing I can do to change that. So please be respectful of that policy. But again, plan ahead, and if your child wants to ride home with a parent, let us know in advance. Moving on to the next page, these are just extra additional performance opportunities that students may or may not choose to participate in. Certainly encouraged, but not required. And you can read about these here in your own time. I don't need to read these to you. Regarding equipment expectations, so many of our students use school-owned instruments. We perform all maintenance on these instruments. These instruments do go through annual cleanings and repair. There is no additional cost to check out a school-owned instrument, but it does require a parent signature on some paperwork in advance. There's an important note here. It says instruments will be checked out to students with preference given to those who placed in a higher band. That means students who are in wind ensemble are typically going to get, which generally are our older members, are going to get some of the better instruments, while younger members are probably going to get some of the less desirable instruments. But that's just the way it is. There are some instruments that we don't have available for checkout, and those would be instruments that a student is expected to own or rent on their own. Chances are, if you have been in middle school band and you own your own instrument, we don't check that out to students. If you've been borrowing or renting an instrument from your school, then you probably can continue to do that at our school as well. Additional information will be given to the students about that, but most people ask, is there a cost associated with that? And the answer to that is no. Dealing with instrument lockers, we do have instrument lockers in our band room. They are fairly nice, and they've been kept fairly nice over the years. We ask that students keep them fairly nice, and it's recommended that students purchase a black combination lock for their locker, especially if it's their own personal instrument. That's not required, but it's suggested. Theft rarely occurs, but it has occurred before, and just understand that if your personal instrument is in a locker without a lock on it and it gets stolen, there is literally nothing I can do to help you. So whether or not you take that precautionary measure, that is up to you, but we're just recommending that you do that. And then moving on to page 10 here, which will be the last page that I go over, uniform expectations. Now, there's a lot of information here, and this doesn't really apply to the students until we start getting into later in the season with marching band performances and then concert ensemble performances late in the fall, in the winter. So anything that I talk to you about here is going to be reiterated later, so I'm not going to go into great detail here, but you can see that some of these items are included in your band fair share contribution. That's the annual fee that you are given at the beginning of the year, and some of these items are not included and will be billed separately to your student. I'm going to go over additional details regarding all financial things in a separate video, so I'm not going to get into that here. But you can just see that we have two different versions for marching band of the uniform. There's the Friday night marching band uniform, which is our Patriot uniform you've probably seen before. And those are the items that a student will wear They basically are fitted for uniform. They have their own uniform that is kept at the school. They never take it home. The only things that they need to be in charge of are white gloves, which we will help them purchase, but that needs to be purchased on their own. That's for Winds players. Long black socks and band shoes, which we will help them purchase, and then their marching band t-shirt, which we will help them purchase. It's recommended that compression shorts or athletic shorts are worn underneath the uniform. We'll talk more about details on that later. And then for our marching band competitions, the students typically, what we've done in the past is wear a custom performance top, which is different than the Patriot uniform top. They will wear the same gloves, socks, band shoes, all the same, so nothing additional needs to be purchased right there. And then the Under Armour and compression shorts you see are listed there as well. So 2 different versions of the uniform that we wear for the fall. During concert season, the students wear what we call concert black, which would be a full tux for the gentlemen, which needs to be purchased. If you own a tux, then we'll take a look at it. But if it's a typical black standard tux, then you should be good. Ladies will wear a black dress, as well as black shoes and a set of pearls. So that is a separate charge, which we will talk about later in the financial video, but it is also technically part of their uniform. And you can see some notes specifically to marching season about hair color, shaving, makeup as well for the ladies. Just FYI, you can review all of that on your own. So that pretty much concludes the majority of the talk on the band handbook. There are a few more pages to the handbook, and that's all talking about financial policies, and that varies from year to year. So I'm going to save that for another video. So, of course, if you have any questions, please email me, and we hope to see you soon.